welcome to part 6 of the cowl, and this week we're going to be doing edging and ends. And so in this session I'm going to show you how we're doing our double crochet border on all our motifs and how we sew in those pesky ends to secure them properly in your mate. And before I do that, one quick reminder before you edge your large granny squares is that I put an announcement on Instagram this week, but when I was testing mine I realised that it just felt a little bit too squeezed in. So if you haven't done it already, you just want to add an extra row round your large granny squares on all of them, even the ones for your sleeves if you're doing the jumper, and they'll just fit into our block so much better. So now I'll flip you around and show you how to do your trim. So we now want to give our motifs a border row of double crochet. This just gives them a nice outline, and then when we're joining them together it means we can't see our join stitches. So I'm bordering mine in black, and I'm going to show you on our multi-box square because I'll be able to explain how to go into the different parts of the stitch. So I'm going to take my black and I'm going to put it on my hook. I'm going to start in my granny square chain space in here in the corner, and so in our corners of our squares, so they can turn, we're going to do our double crochet, and that's my double crochet join, one chain, and then double crochet back in the same space, so we've been able to turn that corner. You're then going to want to loosely double crochet in every stitch. So where we've got the top of a treble, you can just loosely go into the stitch. If you find that your double crochet feels too tight, just go up a hook size, and this will allow you to loosely go round. And so I'm going to work my way in every stitch across this part that's granny square, and then I will explain how we go into the sides of our trebles. So work your way across loosely into each stitch. And then when you get to the treble section, and some of your motifs will have this along the edge too, remember we're joining in like where we joined in our stripe rows. We go into the side of the treble post and then into the top of the stitch, and then into the side of the post and then into the top of the stitch. And you're going to just repeat that all the way along the row. And when you get to the corner, because we don't have a chain space in our treble row, we're going to make sure that we go into the last stitch twice, so we're able to chain, so we're able to turn round that corner. So we're going to go into that last stitch, double crochet, chain one, double crochet in the same stitch to turn round that corner, and now we're ready to double crochet into each of the tops of these trebles. And you're going to want to work your way around the whole motif. And once you've done all those, we're on to sewing in our ends. For sewing in our ends, you're going to want to use your motifs, and I'm going to show you on our large granny. You're going to either want a tapestry needle or a latch hook if you've got it, and a pair of scissors. You're going to want to make sure that you turn your work over and you get that your ends are on the back, and if any are popping through on the front, just pull them through to the right side. And I'm going to show you a couple of tips with sewing in your ends. We've wanted to have kept our end nice and long, and that's because you're going to want to have enough to sew in. So I'm going to show you first with a darning needle. Take your needle, put it on your end. If you're working in multiple colours, always try and sew your end in to the same colour. It just makes it a lot easier. And then another tip is when you're working with longer stitches like trebles, don't go across the block. This will create like a thick piece of work. You want to travel with the trebles. So take your yarn, and my best tip is to wiggle it. So twist it and wiggle down the treble, pull through loosely, come back up the next treble, twist and wiggle, And then what I'm going to do now is kind of create some invisible knots by twisting down the same back on myself. And if you've got, especially with a thicker yarn, you can split the yarn by sewing through the bit of yarn that you've sewn up and pulling it through. You create a sort of invisible knot and it makes it harder for your end to come undone. And I'm going to come back up this part here and twist it through. My main tip is that you always want to sew at least 2 inches of your end in, if not more, because if it pokes out, then you've got enough to pull back in. And I'm going to go under here, back on myself one more time. And if you see now I feel like my end's a little bit short, a tip you can do is if you put your needle back through the opposite way, so then it comes out where your thread is, you can then thread through the eye and have enough to pull through. You can then take your scissors and chop off this loose small end, but try and go back and forth on yourself at least 2 times to hide in your end. It's nice and secure and it can't be seen. And then you take your next and do it in another section. Try not to sew too many of your ends in one clump so you don't get a large lump. I'm now going to show you how to do another end with a latch hook. So I'm coming around, I'm going to take this light pink end and then latch hook. These are used quite a lot in machine knitting. I use them a lot, and if you've got any of my hook kits, they come in it. So the latch hook is great also if some of your ends are too short, but what you can do is come in, twist, and just get that twisting action. That'll help secure. Comes up, the hook when you push through will be open. You'll grab the yarn, and when you pull back through, that little hook will close, securing, and then allows us to pull the yarn through. I'm then going to come down the next one, so do that twisty motion through the stitch. I like to kind of wrap it in at least 3 times. Put the yarn on my hook, hold so it doesn't pull it too tight, pull through, and then I'm going to go back on myself. So start the bottom of this treble, work up, pull through. If it gets a bit hooked on the hook, you can just let go like that, put it in, pull through. And see, you just want to travel with the treble. I'm going to come down this one for my one last pull through, twist through, grab my end, pull it through. Make sure it hasn't pulled my cluster too tight. And sometimes, especially when I'm sewing my ends in on a granny square, I like to, my last pull through, to pull them under the row of trebles. It just gives a nice section to hide your end. So when you're using the hook, remember as well not just to go under the big bits of stitch, but to go through the stitches, because this will really help secure your end. Through the stitches, grab your end, put it on, clip it in the hoop and pull through. And then you're ready to chop your end off. And now you just need to repeat that on all your loose ends on all your motifs. And then we'll be ready to join them into our final makes. So grab all your blocks and you're going to want to repeat those processes. Just remember, if you're doing the blanket or cushion, you want to edge everything. But if you're doing the jumper, you want to edge 2 of these for your body, but leave 2 for your sleeves. And then in our next instalment, we're going to be finally working out how we join these into our larger blocks, ready to make all our final outcomes. So I'll see you then. Bye!